Hey guys, this is Umi here, and today I wanted to show how my storytelling works in my art. So I'm gonna reuse another one of my art drawing videos to kind of show what I'm thinking about and how I usually plan out my drawings to do storytelling and to draw out a story and have the characters interact. First, I usually start out with a character, maybe two or three, one to three characters, but it helps to have more, because it's really fun to have the characters interact with each other when you have more when you have more characters. So here I'm using basically, I guess, the main character as I would imagine it. So he's the captain, and I was imagining what this captain would look like. So I gave him a more beardy look, I guess, and I gave him more I tried to design him to have more of a captain-like look, so he could appear more like a authoritative figure type. And the part I'm learning about is what makes the character more interesting, or what parts of the character stands out and makes them more memorable. So here I've added a lot of detail on what I think the captain maybe could have. Maybe they'd have a few items, accessories on their clothes, maybe this sword, adding a lot of interesting stuff that maybe makes them more interesting to look at. And as I'm drawing it, I like to show what kind of, I think about a lot about as I'm drawing this, I'm thinking a lot about the clothes and the way they look, how their pose, and because a lot of that speaks a lot about their character and plays a lot in a role a lot in the storytelling later on. So next, I'm drawing the second character. So with the second character, maybe I want him to appear more different. So maybe his face looks a little more longer, or shaped more, I guess, more like a triangular shape, and have the hat look a little more different to distinguish the difference between the first character I drew. Of course, I would add more items and accessories like guns or swords, and I would play around a lot with the elements and try to do what I can to make it look interesting, or make the character uniquely them. So this character, I've had him, instead of standing, I wanted him sitting down right next to the main character. And I'm in my head imagining, okay, we have the captain, and we have his assistant, or whoever this guy is. It's not fully known exactly what he does. I just drew him as a sketch just to show that ideally he helps the captain. So that's what I would do. And then so for the third guy, I drew him to be more more of a someone who watches over the sea. So I drew him, of course, with different clothes to distinguish the pirates. So he's more. So here he has more of a short sleeve shirt with a much more simpler look to him. And I would usually give characters like a something that shows what they do. So this guy, maybe I'm thinking maybe he should be the kind of guy to be at the top of the ship and look past the sea with his binoculars or whatever he's holding in his hand. So for this guy, I gave him a bandana. Maybe he's more of a guy who likes to be in the air and looking over the sea. Okay, so I have these 3 characters, and it could be as many characters as you want. You don't have to have 3, or you don't have to have 2 or 1. You can have 4, or it doesn't really matter. And so, but once you have your characters, then you can start creating the story. So I would use these characters and put them in scenes where they interact with each other. So here I'm having the pirate, and he's controlling this ship, and maybe at the top I would make the ship appear really large to kind of make it more interesting and show that he's controlling so much of what's going on here. Okay, next adding the 3rd character I drew, but this time I'm drawing him with his scope, or his whatever pirates use. And he's doing what he usually does, he keeps track of what's far ahead so the captain doesn't crash, that's more of his role. Here I would cluster a lot of my drawings to make it a little more interesting and add some kind of illustration effect. And so right now I'm in this phase of making the characters do things. And for now, these characters are alone just doing their own thing, but you can have 2 characters interact with each other if you like, which I've done that in my old drawings. For an example, I've done a firefighter drawing, and I would have the characters interact with each other, like they would play on a card game on the table or something. And it's really fun because you can get very creative with it. There's so many ways you can go about it, and it starts to reveal a story in one whole picture. So here I drew the 2nd character I drew, and he's in charge of the cannon. So I explained a little more, and then now we're getting on to something a little different. So here's a change in the story where I decided to add a giant octopus, and I just drew these tentacles to show that these pirates are under attack, or they have some kind of something in the story to overcome or be aware about. So that's why I drew this giant monster, sea monster of some kind. And here I would add a pirate interacting with the sea monster as if he's alerted, and so he is trying to do something, I guess, to maybe he realizes how frightening the sea monster is, and the sea monster destroys the pirate ship, and that would be like the conclusion. So that's an example of how usually I create stories, and there's so many different ways you can create them, and most of the time I'm focusing on who the character is, what they are, what their role is in. First I set that up, then I start having them interact with each other. Then I can add maybe an enemy of some kind, or I can add some kind of change to it. And these kinds of scenes can show how to conclude a story, or I hope that makes sense, but there's really it takes practice, and that's something I'm trying. It's honestly a new thing to me, so having characters interact is still pretty challenging because there's so many ways to go about it. There's different ways to get something interesting, and a lot of these scenes I get them from movies, like these pirates. I drew them because I was watching Pirates of the Caribbean, so I thought, well, what if I just draw a few pirates? It's good practice. It's good to learn what these pirates look like, and how movies make them look really cool in the movies, and what kind of scenes in the movies do they use to portray these characters in as they're interacting with each other. So there's a lot of cool stuff that you can use from movies too, if you ever get stuck, or if you're not really sure what kind of angles or composition, or what kind of view you would like to have your characters placed in to represent how you're drawing. Your drawing reveals a story. So this is an entirely new thing for me, but it's also just really interesting and very experimentative, and it's really fun. And if you ever want to try your own, you could give it a try. Just try drawing a few characters. You could start with that, and then and start adding to the story. And on top of that, another thing is so this drawing I did do a tiny sketch. So I've drawn this drawing before, and it's usually just an ideal sketch. It's a very small one, and it's nothing special. It's kind of hard to see, but it's just throwing my ideas onto the sketch before I draw the actual drawing. So, or the actual illustration that I shown here. So you can also do that. You don't have to just draw it instantly without a pre-sketch, or without pre-sketching it, and putting where the characters you think you'd want the characters. And if you can, you could also try just going for it without pre-sketching it, just throwing it in there and see what happens. And if there's mistakes, just leave them. You can just leave them on there. Or you can just pretend it's just a sketch. That way you can look over your mistakes. And it kind of lets you feel free, because there's always going to be mistakes. And so being comfortable with those mistakes is kind of hard, but it can be helpful if there's any. So, but the whole point here is just how it can be fun, just adding scenes and just letting yourself freely create. So if you enjoyed this video, if you found this helpful, when it comes to seeing how I personally how I do my art, If you like this video, you can leave a comment, subscribe, and I'll see if I could do more videos. A lot of the stuff I'm doing is just practice. I practice a lot, so there's a lot of other artists I'm influenced by, so I do a lot of observation and watching, and I get too into it, and so yeah, I hope this helps. If there's other artists you look up to, 'cause I certainly have a lot of artists I look up to, by all means keep watching them, being inspired by them, and apply what they do to your art, which is what I'm doing with the storytelling, and give that a try if you like it. There isn't really a right or wrong way. It's just something fun to do because it's your own language. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Like, comment, subscribe, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. All right, peace.